Oh, my warehouse manager's from Wyoming. They didn't have a lot of Spanish in Wyoming, so we were going to start with learn a Spanish word a day. I just cracked up. Hey, the first word is going to be no, okay? It's no. Yeah, that was funny. Anyway, so yeah, whosoever believeth. Who can believe?
Anyone?
When?
Anytime.
Maybe. Right? No man comes to
The Father.
save but
By the Son.
by the Son. Search well. Search
Oh.
while he can be found. There are certain, so you use the word issues, certain problems. There are certain misconceptions that if you believe, God will send a, is that the right way to word that? In the New Testament, if you believe in homosexuality, God may send us a strong delusion, which pretty much sounds like you're up a creek without a paddle. Search while he may be found. I don't think for all people God's open all the time. I think there are sometimes, some circumstances where God will walk away and you're up a creek without a paddle. And I think some people who count on deathbed repentance, you can't come unless the Father draws you. So if you hold that in your car, if you know too much, I'm not quite sure that always works. We'll have to see when you die and find out. But it says, no man can come to the Father save the Son draws him. So, one would assume here with Mr. Paul and Agrippa, that Agrippa wasn't being drawn. He heard the word, there's nothing you could argue with. But he still said thanks, but no thanks. Oh, and there's one more thing that I think we got to think about when you're witnessing. One can plant, one can water, one does is the harvesting. So there is a lot of witnessing where you're just planting or watering and you won't see the results till 90 days later unless you got a GMO seed. Anyways, the New Testament, Paul is probably the most famous evangelist in the New Testament. The most prolific is probably not mentioned. You never know what's going on. You only get a few dozen people we get to deal with. Who did Paul witness to first? Group of people.
Those Jews.
Jews. Very interesting, Jews. So he went to the Jewish churches and tried to convince them to be Christian. Correct?
Mm-hmm.
And they were easy to find because Jews were in the temple, or the synagogues, I should say. So they were easy enough to find. And after that didn't work out for him, he said he would go to who? Gentiles. Where did he find? Well, actually, how much of an evangelist was he for the Gentiles? I mean, he says that where he went to, but he got arrested pretty early here in the book of Acts. I mean, and I don't think every single bit is written down for the historical preference of Acts.
For sure.
But I mean, he didn't really minister to the Gentiles for too many years in too many places. A lot of that just simply has to do with, I mean, when it takes 6 months to get to Turkey, the country next door, you don't go to a whole lot of places in 2-3 years. How did he find the Gentiles? Did he go door to door? Any record of that?
He normally went to public settings, like in Town Square and
Yep.
the Temple of Diana, and so forth.
I was thinking here in this country, you back up to the Civil War, every city park in the 1850s or so had every city park had a what? They had a bandstand. Right? They had a public area where you would be entertained in the pleasant summer evenings, depending where you are in this country. Like I said, they went to the other churches, the other temples. We really don't have public gatherings anymore. Not really since the invention of electricity and television,
Air conditioning.
the radio, air conditioning. Now, since that General Electric guy invented all those record players and speakers and that, there's no more public, which is going to make this witnessing more and more complicated. Because there is no public, well, there's no in-person public square. I mean, I don't think there's any, I mean, there's a time when there's chat rooms existed, but I don't know if they even exist anymore. I was never into that kind of technology. I'm old. I gotta save old people. I can't save new people. But and even with this COVID thing, I'm not quite sure how many people are gonna go back in public. I mean, I think there's gonna be, a quarter of people who no longer have to go to work. There's no reason for a salesman to be inside of a cubicle anymore. They can hook their computer up at home and have access to the same warehouse or same sales that they used to have. So it's going to be more and more difficult to find people, I think, at least without saving technology. Okay, how else, what other book of Acts testament do we have, or evangelistic do we have? What other examples are given in the Bible? We'll go for the whole New Testament.
Apollos?
Do what?
Apollos?
Apollos, but what other methods? We have, we can defend yourself in front of the judge, we can go where the public squares and preach the gospel, what we would call street preachers nowadays, which most places would be preaching to yourself because they need too many people.
Peter did go into a man's home when invited.
When invited. The easiest way to witness is, and it's also the best, is when God sends you somewhere with a eunuch and Peter.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, you always feel good on that one because now you know things are in play.
Yeah.
You know something good can come out of this. It ain't cold calls. You can be casting your pearls before swine on cold calls sometimes, as they say in the sales business. So you can go where the heathens are, go where God sends you, which is always the one that actually works. I mean, go where the heathens are. I mean, that outcome can be dicey. Ask Paul. Saves a few, burn a few, as it were. What other things for witnessing?
The sick are in prison?
Sick in the prison. And that's also going where the heathen are. Yeah, no more public squares, the prisons are full. Yeah, what? Should be a lesson in there somewhere too.
Well, in the modern, the social media and YouTube.
YouTube. Another witnessing in the Old Testament is your life is an epistle, open to all.
Seen and read of all men.
An epistle is a big fancy word for book.
Or document.
Document. Parchment, because books were expensive and require binding. So yeah, that's a good way to witness. You're happy, cheerful, got your act together. People wonder why. Don't cuss too much.
Your life, the
Yep.
way you live it.
Yep, which would be the open epistle.
Mm-hmm.
Which another one which is tiring, gets weary, is defending the faith. I work with a bunch of heathens, and it just gets tiring after a while. I don't really don't wear my religion on my sleeve too much. I don't Bible thump too many people. But if there comes up a conversation, you always have an answer. I mean, it's, one time walking a conversation and the heathens were talking about, Jesus didn't say anything about hell. Hell's not even a place. Hell's where dead people are. I'm going, okay, yeah, technically you're right. In the gospel, hell, Sheol is where is the cemetery. I go, hold it, but Jesus did talk about outer darkness, weeping, wailing, and gnashing of teeth. Well, it's not a lake of fire. Well, okay, granted, I mean, it's still don't think you want to go, right? I mean, let's not play semantics here, people.
In Matthew 25, Bill, the goats was cast into the fire.
Yep. So yeah, the defending's always interesting. What else is there? Okay, so now we got all this background, and we're going to do the one thing that churches never do. Your word you use, never, is not true. Never is never true. But anyways, and that is usually there's no examples. What if then? Where to go from? So we got this background on witnessing, what we got to get across, different examples in the New Testament. And this all started with my thought of the Grand Canyon. Who's seen the Grand Canyon? Everybody here seen the Grand Canyon? Sharon, you seen the Grand Canyon? You've been seen the Grand Canyon? Okay.
And my father was born near it.
I was born near it and then never been over. It's one of those places where, I don't know, a couple of years ago, I drove 2 days out of my way to go see the Grand Canyon again. That's nice to look at for 15, 20 minutes.
Right.
I mean, it's something to behold. It's very unique. I'll give you that. Most of the time, I always think about you're on vacation, you want to see the mountains, you want to go see the Rockies, the Glacier National Park, and even the ocean. The ocean has something to look at, and it's big and an interesting thing. But to quote Anne of Green Gables, I think, scope for the imagination. I've always been intrigued with the desert, and more importantly, middle of nowhere in the desert. I often wondered what would Weed Heights be, Yarrington be, back when they first started mining in the 50s. Back when Highway 95 was not paved yet. Back up to, or got to Eagle Mountain, down in the lower desert in Southern California, another hour past Indio. Big old mountain made out of iron that Mr. Kaiser thought he could mine and bring to Fontana and make Liberty ships out of and put them in the water in Long Beach. I couldn't imagine, you see those places today, it's like, man, that's middle of nowhere now. What was it like in the 1940s? Mr. Butler in Tonopah, I can't imagine how he ever found gold in Tonopah. I mean, I love the story. I'll tell it every time, he picks up a rock to throw it at his donkey, at his mule. You go, oh, this rock is heavy. I go, man, how many rocks do you got to throw at a mule to realize that rock is heavy? But can you imagine Tonopah back in the 1860s? How in the world did you ever get there? Can you imagine Butler walking out there with a mule out of Frisco? Man, you die of old age before you get there. And most of my kids think that being middle of nowhere is a common part of vacation. I mean, it is unique to the American West where you can see a sign that says next gas 2 hours away. And then I started, I was wondering who lives out there? Who lives in Ione? You guys have been to Ione. What would draw you to Ione? And for those of you who don't know, Ione's between here and Eureka, down a dirt road for an hour. Little community.
30 people.
30 people. The roads are paved. The dirt roads getting there. And
Let's have a Baptist church.
let's have a Baptist church. Well, I found a documentary on a place called Darwin, California. And it's in between Big Pine, Lone Pine, No Pine, and Death Valley. About an hour down a one-way road if you're going to Death Valley out of the Inyo Valley. And we'd never been there. I went through it once as a youngster trying to find some falls. And you wonder what kind of people live in the middle of nowhere in the desert. You can understand who lives in the city. You can understand who lives in Kansas, Nebraska, and the answer is people who are born there. But to move to the desert in the middle of nowhere, and it's so much easier now. Before the mention of UPS and Amazon, I couldn't imagine before the internet that was invented living in the middle of nowhere. But some would argue the whole world was middle of nowhere before those inventions. And question of who lives in Darwin, and most likely Ione and any other middle of nowhere place. I'm going to go out on a limb and say broken people. This documentary, there's not a sane person among them. You just watch it, and it's one depression after another. It's people who are hiding from society, hiding from people, and apparently people are pack animals. So that draws up a problem. It's hard to be alone with somebody else. But if you lived in Ione or Darwin, it's about as close as you can get. So I'm going to run a little video here if technology allows. And what you're going to see is 4 people. You're going to see a person born as a woman going through the transition to be a male, and her lesbian lover, and how the parents react to such a thing. So, run it, let's see if the technology works. Oh, please work, or this ain't gonna work at all. Welcome to the desert.
I really like the complete lack of organized religion, and if there are Christians out here, I don't know about it, because there's no proselytizing out here, anything like that.
When I was a kid, my mom was very Christian, very religious. We went to church every Sunday, and she got pretty crazy sometimes with her religion.
Now, this is their parents, her parents.
Well, before Hank and I met, I was really into studying the Bible a lot, trying to find my true path. You could say I was looking for my God or gods. I started finding things that I felt in the Bible were just not matching up like they should. Just didn't seem true to me. So I kept researching and researching and researching for years and years. We met. We got together, and he kept telling me, just keep searching, keep studying, you'll find the truth, you'll find the truth.
When I first moved in with Connie, she wasn't really cool with my witchcraft tendencies. I was depressed one day, and so Hank looked up a little ritual to help with depression.
It was just before Christmas, 2 years ago. We were talking about getting our Christmas gifts for all our family and this and that, and we were talking about Penny. And so we thought we'd go online and look for different things that we knew she could probably use in her little rituals that she does. Well, when we got online and started looking,
We started researching
witchcraft, and found out that Christianity wasn't our true path. If you're looking for a true religion, you need to go at the beginning, where it all came from, and that was from paganism.
You can't blame the devil for making you do wrong because
There
you
is
don't
no
believe there is
devil.
a devil.
No devil.
Uh,
There's no hell.
we happen to believe Odin
It's our main God.
is our
Universal God.
universal God. Staff is basically the same thing as a magic wand.
The males usually use it.
It's more of a male object because it's tall and long, I guess you'd say.
The Salic symbol, is that
Yeah.
how the word Salic?
No West.
Samhain. We do Halloween. We do ritual for the dead.
Ritual of the dead. And of course, this is our little
Meditation.
sanctuary and meditation area. You get to come up here
North, south,
Just
east, and
that.
west.
and look out at our beautiful view out there
And meditate.
and meditate.
All right. Okay, you knock on it. Let's go with the parents. You knock on the parents' door. Witness.
The only to help them, to bring them soup when they're sick, to minister to their physical needs, because they're not going to listen to anything you say, not until you have met their physical needs.
I don't think that's going to work in this case. I don't think that was the problem. It's kind of interesting. Everything that you need to know on what the problem is there. Everything is presented in that little 90-second clip. And I think we have to look, I think you have to look deep. I think you have to look and realize what happened, where they went. And a lot of things I want to know too, I want to ask the questions. She said some things weren't making sense. Well, I got news for you. You go from that to Odin, you are not making sense. Anybody want to tell me who Odin is?
Old European god.
Oh, not really Europe. Well, North, is it not?
Yeah.
Northern European. The Celtics, the Vikings, and whatnot. And who is Odin? Is he really, is he considered the All-Father? Is he the gods of God?
Only after Christian influence.
Only after Christian influence? In the Marvel world is so much easier because they have to sit in sheep. Odin is just a space alien, much like Superman. Not really a deity at all, just unique skills. The best you can tell from the Norse that I can remember and think of is that he would be the top god, much along the line of the other mythologies from Rome and Greek, but these are northern. And his thing was wisdom. He wanted to grab all wisdom. Back in the day, there was male jobs and female jobs, and he was complicated enough to be involved with both. And he is complicated enough that whatever you think he is, you read the next chapter, the next book, he's the exact opposite. Warrior, poet. Lover, killer. Smart, dumb. But the paganism really is, I hate the idea that come up with we're the oldest. I got to back up to you. Definition of paganism, which is written by the Western world. Anybody who doesn't belong to the religion that has Abraham in it, which includes our Muslim friends are not pagans. They are a monotheistic religion along with the Jews and the Christians. But everybody else is considered to be pagan. And you watch this, you sit there and go, this wasn't making sense to her. And let's be realistic. We can say that also. There's things in Christianity, I think you want to be honest, does not really make sense. It depends how you look at it and how far you want to take it. The wages of sin is death. Why? God made the rules. It doesn't have to be. Why are we here? And try to answer that without turning us into Labradors. Where did God come from? And of course, Odin answers none of these questions. And it goes on and on and on and on. But right in the middle of that, I think is the secret for them. There is no devil, there is no hell. If you are a Christian and your daughter shows up in a lesbian relationship with a Wiccan who wants to be male, are you left with two choices? And one of those choices is to become pagan? If Christianity is not, and paganism is, your child is not going to hell. Given the choice, can you at least understand a mother's plight? you should never make references that nobody in the congregation gets, but I just can't. Can't help myself. The saddest words ever heard. Tinker to Evers to Chance. An old poem back in the days. We all know about Casey at the Bat. Apparently in the 1900s, Americans had nothing better to do than write poetry about baseball games. Back in the 1900, the Cubs won 6 out of 8 pennants. And their shortstop, second base, first baseman was Tinker, Evers, and Chance. And if you were a New York Giants fan, and yes, I said New York and not San Francisco, because it's that old, the poem is, the saddest words ever heard was Tinker to Evers to Chance. Because that would always hit into a double play, and your New York Giants would always go home because they would lose to the Cubs once again. But here you got the same thing. It's just, yeah, I believe in Odin. You say it on YouTube, change my mind. What does it offer you? It offers you only one thing. No hell. You don't have to deal with the everlasting consequences. But that doesn't answer the question now on how to witness to them. And maybe you're right, maybe there is no way. But how can you have a community of 40-odd people and write them off? And actually, if you watch this documentary, these are some of the more normal people. At least they're thinking.
Yeah.
But what? There's no salvation in this. There's no forgiveness in this. But then again, they say, I need none. And these are the real people. I mean, it's easy to witness to normal people. Maybe there are no normal people. Maybe that's what the problem is.
I don't know how to reach them. I don't feel qualified.
I don't know what
any of them that were there.
I mean, I think the only I understand what you're saying, but I don't know if you need any qualifications, and there's nothing. Because I think it's wrapped up with parents and their children. To me, it's that simple. If I believe Christianity is right, my kid's going to hell. So let's not believe.
I think God has to draw them. No one can come unless He draws them.
I agree.
The distressing,
That never stops us from knocking on doors.
Yeah.
the distressing thought is how many communities like that there are just in this state.
And it's unique to think about how people are. Where you live, what you do, how much money you make defines 90% of who you are. There's a music group out there that's called Spotify. You tell it what kind of music you listen to, you tell it what zip code you live in, it'll tell you who you are. It'll tell you who you voted for president. It will tell you how much money you make. Because we congregate that way, being the pack animals that we are, apparently. You live in my neighborhood, there's more white Trump supporters making $50,000 a year than anywhere else in the world. I mean, it's simply that way. Minorities are somewhat lacking here in rural Nevada. Gays are somewhat lacking here in working rural Nevada. Anybody different? I mean, coffee shops and churches, where are there more of?
Churches.
Right? Ain't that? You would never believe that watching the media. You would have to stop and look. But the same way to reach everyone is still going to be the good news. It doesn't matter why they're broken or how they're broken. The fact is they are simply broken. And they're so desperate that you got to look to Odin. And that's the part that's just, I mean, I cannot have a reasonable conversation with somebody who believes in the Norse mythology. Because if you really look at it, Odin is not even a god, most likely. How can you have a religion without a god? Instead of the All-Father, it's the No-Father. But to have that built into a person, just to me, is so interesting, is so unique. How hard can it really be to turn somebody from Odin to Christianity? In the words, how hard is it to turn them back? It might be easier to turn them. Matter of fact, I think that the New Testament probably teaches you it's a whole lot easier to turn them than it is to turn them back. You might just not know enough where it make it more complicated. But to me, that just, I mean, this is, and I have not dealt with this yet, with something that was just so far out there that you make me speechless, where you simply walk away. I mean, diehard Catholics, diehard Mormon, and fine. But to believe in Odin, to believe in Norse mythology, or the other, you know, whether it's Rome and Greek, I mean, how can you really believe somebody when they believe in, you know, the Greek gods, the pantheon, you know, or whoever thinks that Maui is real? I mean, you know, I'd love to go to Hawaii and try to change their mind. It's probably more fun than Darwin. You were going to say something?
Is it a way to be an atheist without having to face the obvious problems of atheism, such as the proof there is a God?
No. C.S. Lewis said it best, and to paraphrase him, I, being a Christian, don't have to find the other religions to be 100% wrong. You as an atheist got to believe all religions are all wrong. I can believe some religions have some right, some righteousness, some correctness to them. But to believe that all are wrong, good luck on that one.
Takes a lot of faith.
I mean, I can find truth in most religions, but to find them all wrong all the time? Mortimer Bailey doesn't believe that. But yeah, it is more, you know, and I think atheism is probably one of the easier ones to convert, to tell you the truth. It's the ones who believe in the, let's go with it, the wacko religions are the ones that are hard to reach. How do you convince a Wiccan that it's wicked? And I looked up the ritual here for depression. Anybody want to know what one of them it involves? You make a sun cake. You make a lemon cake. Put it on your, I forgot what they had a special name for the tile, for the pentagram, and put it on your altar, put some incense on it, and voila, you are better from depression. It's hard to argue with stuff like that. To make a cake and offer it to, I'm not quite sure who they offered it to, because there's.
You get to eat it.
Oh, to offer it. It's a sacrifice.
Okay.
No, people who eat the offerings are called binge eaters,
That's how they make it chocolate. You know.
and look more like me than they do than Wiccans. Okay, back up here. Back up to the people are broken, and you do have the good news, and that's what you're going to have to lead with and run with, and see what would work. Because I don't think you run down the rabbit hole and try to deal with these people on any kind of rational basis, any kind of meaningful dialogue besides saying, you understand that there is a God, and that's why you still find it open. You realize you got to have a need for that. Where is the, the rational argument is, okay, where's the need for salvation out of that? Where are you redeemed? How are you? I mean, take a look. Take a look at your life here with Odin. How are your kids any better with this? Are they functioning? Are they happy? Are they? Well, it doesn't seem to work then, now does it? Easy enough to explain. Well, I don't know. I was hoping you guys would have a little bit more answers, but I really knew there isn't one. You can't. There is a scripture, pearls before swine. There is a time to cut your losses. There is a time where it's not going to work. But it is so sad and so pathetic. I mean, my goodness, how do you function like this? How do you really look yourself in the mirror? How do you go forwards? What do you live for? I mean, to go out and hey, I don't know whether they'll do it all the time, to stand in the middle of the desert and wonder why. But to paint the four corners of the earth, I think you're gonna change everything. That's where we part ways. Okay, now you're all depressed and looking at me like I'm crazy. I'm gonna go sit down. You guys even